Cory, you saw this a million miles away. Once again, called it. How you doing, man?
I'm doing well. I'm wearing my "Say Crypto One More Time" T-shirt, which seems appropriate for today. Yeah, it's pretty wild. I mean, what's funny is this was all an open secret, right? You know, the non-Bitcoin crypto industry has basically crypto merta, which is don't tell anybody how this works. But there's actually been enough reporting on Binance over the last couple of years that a lot of the stuff is actually out in the open. Everything from Binance US not actually being separate from the international. By the way, since Brecky's on camera, this is Brecky von Bitcoin, one of the OG original 6 of the Swan squad, and glad to have him here. From that to CZ owning 2 market makers that operate on the exchange and obviously have the capability, even if it's hard to prove, of trading against their users, but certainly being the funnel through which orders on Binance US were actually executed on the international exchange, because there really was no liquidity to speak of on the US exchange. So that was kind of how they got around the law there. Just kind of over and over again. And then, you know, at the root of this all is that these altcoins that Binance markets and promotes around the world through its mass effort of crypto colonialism, basically just trying to turn everyone around the world into, you know, pump and dump chasing, you know, marks for a global casino, just wildly immoral, totally illegal in many jurisdictions. And yeah, it's all kind of coming crashing down. And I guess the other comment that I'd get across before kicking to Lynn, hopefully, is that this move by the SEC makes a lot of sense to do it in this order. And I tweeted this out an hour ago or so. You go after Binance, which has no powerful allies in the USA, and you use this case to set a bunch of precedents, basically, that then makes it much easier to go after Coinbase, because Coinbase has a ton of lobbyists. They've already funneled tons of money into congressional campaign coffers through the Coinbase PAC. They've got tons of people in DC. Andreessen Horowitz has hired a ton of regulators, and they obviously were early investors in Coinbase and have a lot to lose. The Ethereum Foundation is basically, you know, essentially laundering their profits through Coinbase with the staking, and all the pre-mined whales on Ethereum are basically just, you know, giving some of that money to Coinbase. So there's, you know, and Circle, don't forget, Circle's just handing over, you know, hundreds of millions of dollars to Coinbase by splitting their yield on the treasuries for their stablecoin with Coinbase. So there is a lot more money and a lot more entrenched interest that would make it a lot harder to go at Coinbase first. And so if they can chalk up this easy win, essentially, against you know, nobody has sympathy for the absolute scam casino that Binance is, it should be very easy to continue to go after the other bad actors in the USA.
Yeah, and there's this tweet that really resonated with me, Cory, and I want to read it before we get Lynn on stage, right? You recently tweeted about 45 minutes ago. You said, "I'm not pro-regulation. I am anti-scam, anti-crime, and anti-hypocrisy." Anyways, I want to welcome Lynn on stage. How you doing, Lynn?
How are you all doing?
Good. It's been a crazy day. And last but not least, Hafa. How you doing, Hafa? Also known as Alpha Zeta, dropping some alpha consecutively on Twitter. Shout out to the Nakamoto portfolio, which is freaking awesome.
Thank you. How you guys doing?
Crazy day. Steven, so what's top of mind?
Yeah, so, you know, it's looking at kind of, all right, what are the implications of this? How are it's going to play out? What are the implications for Binance? What are the implications for some of these cryptocurrencies that the SEC has claimed are securities in their filing? Top of mind is Solana, one of the biggest ones that was named specifically in the Binance lawsuit. And really, like, what was Binance doing with these customer funds, right? When you see an exchange like Binance that is moving customer funds, moving customer funds to another company that's controlled by them, you have to ask the question, like, did they sustain losses there? Were there trading losses? Because that's ultimately what broke FTX. That's what took down FTX, was they were trading with customer funds and took giant losses. Now, I'm not saying that that did or did not happen in this scenario, but that is the next obvious question: is, were there any losses? How big? And customers seeing this news with Binance are they going to withdraw their assets from Binance? I mean, surely some are, and if so, and if there are losses, could that trigger a bank run? That's something we'll have to see.
100%. And it, the information that came out of the CoinDesk article was really, really striking. And it confirmed that there was this commingling of funds, Stephen. It's not just, a lot of people were, they were alleging that, but now it's come out clear as day. Anyways, I want to get Hafa's thoughts. What's up, man? It's definitely a crazy way to start a
Yeah,
Monday.
it is. Yeah, I think that, I'll start by saying that this is, of course, it's yet another topic that we have to discuss with a lot of people, right? It's never good. I still have people asking me about FTX and all of that. So it's just another one like that. But I think on the other side, this has no impact in Bitcoin, right? Bitcoin is still the same, doesn't change anything. If anything, I think this is good at the end of the day, because it's good to get a player like Binance definitely, shouldn't be doing what they're doing. As I said earlier, I think that the best thing people can do if you have assets there, just move out, right? There's the downside risk is significantly larger than what the upside you have. You have no upside in leaving anything there. But as Steven said, let's see what's going to happen. I think there's evidence of different things that they've done in the past, and I think it's good. But I also think that, we've seen Bitcoin sell off in a day like this. It's still evidence that people don't, they're either one of the things are happening. People are selling because they don't understand what they hold, because fundamentally this is actually, I would say, positive to Bitcoin, not negative, and or people are getting liquidated. And in events like this, we know that happens. We just don't know exactly how much or how that's happening, but that's probably part of the movement that we've been seeing, right? Maybe even Binance selling some Bitcoin. We just don't know, right? We have no way to knowing that today.
Let's also jump in there real quick. I mean, Bitcoin's at 25,700. It's down, a little over $1,000. That's a pretty small move. I think you're definitely not seeing Bitcoin investors specifically panic. Obviously, a lot of cryptos are down more than that, but down about $1,000. I think that's fairly moderate.
So I want to get Lynn's thoughts. Lynn, did this come as a surprise to you, or did you expect this, like Cory?
Well, so this has been well telegraphed for a while, and Corey's been covering it better than most people, I think. So this is not really a surprise overall. We've seen kind of regulators of various types pile on. Binance is by far the biggest target to go after in terms of the sheer scale. We're talking like an order of magnitude larger than FTX, and so this is not that surprising. And this whole industry, because it all grew up in the span of a decade and in a largely kind of jurisdictional arbitrage way, not a lot of regulation, you see a lot of things that are kind of immature relative to the current market structure you see in equities or elsewhere, where, for example, you have the same entity operating on an exchange and then trading on that exchange and then issuing its own securities on that exchange and all these kind of things that are like stacked up that creates, an environment that is, stacked against the small user using that exchange. And so I think that that's slowly being cracked open by all these different regulators. I also think we're seeing some degree of global bifurcation where there's some areas that seem willing to become hubs for this type of thing because of the the revenue they get or whatever the case may be, and other jurisdictions like the United States are taking among the most hardline approach on it. So we're seeing kind of this like bifurcation spread out. Another thing I've been trying to monitor is the overall impact of Bitcoin's price because as Rafa mentioned, Bitcoin itself is not really affected by this, other than the fact that you have to ask who is selling, who might be forced to sell, who's getting liquidated, and of course, one of the risks is that Binance could sell some of its Bitcoin. And if you go back to the when Luna blew up, let's say in May 2022. If you look at Glassnode data, so they do their best to try to figure out how much Bitcoin different exchanges actually have. They use a bunch of different on-chain characteristics. If you talk to Checkmate, who works there, there's some that they're more sure about than others. Like some have kind of clearer heuristics than others, but they do their best to kind of track how much Bitcoin each exchange has. And if you look at FTX's balance, after the Luna fiasco, FTX's Bitcoin balance started to drop significantly. That was kind of a sign, especially in hindsight. People weren't really looking at it too much at the time, at least most people, but that they were actually, we found out later that they didn't actually have any Bitcoin. So there are a lot of customers thought they had Bitcoin through FTX and they didn't. And it's in large part because FTX was selling the Bitcoin that was actually customer Bitcoin. So far, according to Glassnode data, we don't really see that with Binance. But the risk there is that they, according to Glassnode, they have like 700,000 Bitcoin. And so I think that some of the selling pressure we see in Bitcoin is that some investors have concerns that if Binance does have some sort of solvency problem, that they might sell some of their stack, or might sell some of their customer stack, and kind of damage the price in that way. So whenever you have these big honeypots that can be cracked open in various ways, that does present kind of this like near term price risk or volatility risk.